Hello, everyone, and welcome to another LinkedIn and YouTube Live with Salesforce Ben, where we talk to various thought leaders about topics in the Salesforce ecosystem. And today we're very lucky to have Gaspar Rodriguez with us from Blue Road Academy, talking about how to land your first Salesforce job. So the Salesforce ecosystem has been exploding over the past decade or so, something like that. So many people are rushing into the ecosystem to be able to support its growth, with Salesforce growing at 20-25% a year. And we are going through a bit of a weird patch at the moment. We're having this economic downturn. There's been layoffs at Salesforce in the wider tech ecosystem. But Salesforce is still growing, a little bit less than before, but growing around 15% to 20% year over year, which is adding kind of 3 billion in revenue from their various products. So the demand for professionals in the Salesforce ecosystem is still huge. All the numbers are telling us that. So today we're going to speak to Gaspar about how to land your first role in the Salesforce ecosystem and tips and tricks around that. So I'm going to bring Gaspar into the conversation. Hey Gaspar, how's it going?
Hey Ben, thanks for having me. Good, and you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. And thank you for being with us here today. So I'm going to hand it over to Gaspar now. We're going to have a Q&A at the end. So if you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll get around to as many as we can. So Gaspar, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben, and thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for being here. So as Ben mentioned, yes, Salesforce has grown quite a lot since its inception in 1999, of course, as you've seen it. And we also see that the job creation part and the talent ecosystem part is growing more and more as well. But we are here to talk about, what it's like to really get started in Salesforce, because sometimes that's, for not just for Salesforce, for other professions as well. It's one of the most difficult things to do, is to really get started and get on that fast track towards your career goals, right? So today is really all about the first Salesforce role, so Salesforce junior roles, and really kind of breaking into the ecosystem. So I'm happy to share my experience as a Salesforce professional in this, but also my experience leading Blue Road Academy, which I will also talk about. So as we get started, just keep in mind that everything is muted. You can put questions in the comments, so feel free to go and put questions there, or anything you'd like to chat about. We will check that regularly, but ideally hold all of your questions till the end. We'll have at least 15 minutes for Q&A. Because that's really one of the nicest parts of doing a live event, is we can really answer your questions live. And yes, it will be recorded, and it will be shared on LinkedIn as well as YouTube. So what are we actually going to be covering today? So I'll do a small intro on myself, on Blue Road Academy, but really it's more around why Salesforce, why now, and also how to really land your first Salesforce role. I'll give you about 5 different tips and best practices that we talk a lot about in our work, and that I also talk to a lot with other Salesforce professionals to really discuss, how do you break into the ecosystem, and how do you put yourself in a position to really land that first Salesforce role, which is, as I mentioned, one of the hardest parts, I would say. And then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So a little bit about myself. So I've been now in Salesforce for since 2010. I was not really aiming for Salesforce. I started as what's known as an accidental admin, which means that you are someone who's doing your day job, but then Salesforce all of a sudden creeps into your tasks, or you hear about it, or you're part of an implementation. And then you end up liking Salesforce quite a lot. It gets, part of your responsibilities at work, and all of a sudden you're trying to configure fields and doing lots of learning in the evenings, because you're kind of hooked on Salesforce, right? So that was my journey. I was working for an NGO in Washington, D.C., and basically we decided to implement Salesforce for our grant management solution. This was way before Trailhead, way before Lightning. And so basically, if you wanted to learn Salesforce, you either had to go to a couple of blog sites, or you had to ask people, or go to the Ideas Exchange and talk to people there. But a lot of it was just kind of upskilling yourself, right? So this was back in the days before Trailhead, where you really had to go through and find out as much as you could online, basically. But since then, I've been working in Salesforce since that time in different capacities. Mostly as a consultant, so I've been consulting for different organizations around the world, doing a lot of solution design, a lot of implementation on the Salesforce platform. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I started looking at what else can we do with Salesforce, right? Is it really all about consulting? Is it really all about implementations? What about education? What about training? And so together with two co-founders, we started Blue Road Academy, which used to be called Refugee Force. And since then, we've won a few awards as well, and I've been recognized by Salesforce for that, and that has been my main role ever since. Just to also mention, I'm Chilean, but I grew up in the U.S. and I'm currently based in Amsterdam. So I've been around, and I know that it's, especially when you're moving into a new country, how difficult it is to find that network and find that first job. So a little bit about Blue Road Academy. So we were founded in 2019, about 3 years ago. We really got started doing a training program exclusively for newcomers or refugees who are looking to start their career in Salesforce. We saw that, on the one hand, there was a huge part of society that was not really getting the opportunities that they deserve. So they are unemployed or underemployed refugees living in the Netherlands in this case. When we started, they've come to a new country. They've gone through the asylum process. They've done, checked all the boxes. They've also figured out their lives in the meantime and their family situation. And basically they're looking for a new job, right? And after they are resettled, sometimes they can only find, low skilled or low paid work, which is part of the structural part of society, right? And I think that's a huge problem. It's a huge problem for them. It's a huge problem for lots of areas where jobs are needed. And I think it's a long-term problem for Europe, to be honest. So I think we looked at that and we said, okay, what can we do? How can we help? Where can we try to make this situation a bit better? So that was one side. And the other side was Salesforce, which we saw was growing quite a lot, especially in Western Europe, in the Netherlands. And we decided to start a training program to help refugees basically break into the Salesforce ecosystem. So since then, we've been working in the Netherlands, Germany, a bit in the UK, and most recently in Denmark and Sweden. And we are focused on training 10,000 newcomers by 2030. So we want to provide our training to them for free. It's a classroom-based training, and we want to help them find employment in the Salesforce ecosystem. And also keeping an eye to women in tech and trying to get more women involved in our program by trying to get a 50-50 gender ratio in all of the programs that we do. So if you're interested in Blue Road Academy, if this sounds like something that is exciting to you and you live in any of these countries, feel free to scan the QR code on the top right, and that'll take you to our website. I think Ben will also post our website so you can get more information. But yes, we are not so much here to talk about Blue Road, but we're really, sorry about that. I'm going to share my screen again. We're really here to talk about, why Salesforce and how to land that first job, right? So as Ben mentioned, Salesforce is huge, and there's really never been a better time, I think, to land your first Salesforce role. Not only is it growing in terms of companies who use Salesforce, but also in its products and services, which vastly outweighs the revenue that Salesforce itself has as a company, right? So a lot of people focus on there's conversations around the layoffs and what's happening at Salesforce, the company, but that's only a very it's a part of the entire ecosystem that is supported by Salesforce. So there are dozens of other organizations, consultancies, application development companies, marketing agencies, etc., providing a lot of value into the Salesforce ecosystem, and that's only growing. And it's about 5 times as big as Salesforce itself, right? The entire kind of Salesforce economy. So with that comes a lot of talent demand, and if you read the reports, if you kind of do some LinkedIn searches for Salesforce jobs or go to Indeed, you can see that there's a huge demand for Salesforce talent, and this has never been higher. And of course, in order for these companies to grow and for them to provide the best service, the best products, we see that there's a lot of demand for talent on the back of that. So Salesforce is a huge kind of job creation engine, and there's new consultancies starting all the time. There are so many new products. They're also growing through different acquisitions of other companies. So yeah, there's a lot there. It's not just consulting or being a developer. There's so many more roles now that are opening up in Salesforce as it grows. On the talent side, so this is really what I spend most of my time looking at, is that we see the talent strategies are changing. So there's definitely more demand for nearshoring and offshoring locations. So we see that there's expansion in North Africa, in South Africa, in Kenya, Rwanda, and Latin America, and Brazil is growing quite a lot. We see also in Eastern Europe, Moldova, Macedonia, people are talking and setting up capacities there and looking for talent and developing talent. So this is really where Salesforce has basically expanded beyond the traditional markets, and now is looking to grow in brand new areas. And for that, they need a lot of people to understand Salesforce, to skill up on Salesforce, and there's a huge talent demand in these other areas. So on that side of things, it's only growing, and they've set themselves some very ambitious targets. 9.3 million new jobs. It's quite a lot. So it's definitely aligned with the growth in revenue and the growth in products and services. So not only that, but the community is growing, right? So there are so many more professionals now in the Salesforce ecosystem. There are so many different kinds of roles available to you. Business analyst, designer. You can specialize on different applications like MuleSoft or Slack. So there's just so much more, and the more that it grows, the more you can specialize and focus on a specific part of the platform or part of the ecosystem that will give you kind of a competitive advantage over others, because there's so much there to learn, right? So we really see this as an excellent, amazing time to actually work in Salesforce and find your path, right? So let's talk a little bit around what employers are saying. So again, as a junior, as a starter, as a fresher, or other terminology, basically someone who's looking for that first kind of experience in Salesforce, you come up with a lot of different roadblocks, right? So one of them is that everyone wants a junior position with 1 to 2 years of experience, for example, right? Everyone wants to know what kind of value you're adding to their company, what kind of role you see yourself in. They want to see that you have a plan for yourself, right? And we see this quite a lot, is that a lot of people get tripped up when they think about, okay, what am I really bringing to this company, as opposed to what do I want to do, right? And usually when you're starting in an organization, it's not really about Salesforce. It's not really about it's not about these things. It's really more about what kind of value are you going to add, and what's the plan that you have for yourself, right? So if you found yourself in a situation like this where you want to do anything and you're so excited about Salesforce, that actually might make it a little bit harder for the interviewer and the employer to see a path for yourself. So I do recommend thinking more around what is the value that you want to add to the company? What's your plan, right? What is it that you want to do? And so research the company. You should know a lot about what the company does. It's not just Salesforce, right? There's much more that the company is doing with Salesforce. If it's a consultancy, then you want to know exactly, what kind of customers do they have, what specialization do they have, what industry verticals do they have. Those are the things that matter in the beginning, is really understanding what the company does. If it's a customer, if it's someone who's using Salesforce, then you really want to understand their business to see if that's a fit for you, right? Also, we see a lot of people who dive into interviews and who are not super prepared. So definitely practice as much as you can your interviews. Take a job description and ask your friend to read it to you, and then you basically kind of fake apply to this. It really helps if you do it. If you can't find a friend, I would recommend also just recording yourself applying to a job and answering some interview questions. It's quite painful, but it's helpful. I guarantee it will help you. It will kind of help you see how you sound and how you answer different questions in front of a camera, to give you a different perspective, right? Because I really think that sometimes when you are answering questions and in an interview, it might not sound the same as if you play it back to yourself and watch the recording. So I definitely recommend this as a good tactic. It will definitely help you. The other one is to make a plan. So what does your first 3, 6, 12 months look like at this employer, right? At this place that you want to work in. Set some specific goals, set some targets, right? Do you want to get a certain certification, or would you like to go to certain conferences, or would you like to learn a specific skill set, right? So make that plan for yourself and try to communicate that to your employer or to that interviewer, for them to make them feel like you really have a plan, and you have something that you want to achieve, and you're not just kind of waiting for them to tell you what to do or give you Jira tasks, right? It's really more about what's your value and what's your contribution. So keep in mind that, as a junior, as a starter, they're really making a big investment in you, and they want you to learn, and they want you to grow within their company. They want you to understand what their tactics are, what their strategies are, how they work with customers, what's their approach to Salesforce and solution design and all of these things. So they will have their way of working that they want you to learn. And so they're making quite a big investment in you. And learning is also part of that, right? They do expect you to learn. A lot of people think, oh, no one's going to pay me to learn in my job, but it's not true, because Salesforce is such a big platform, and it's changing so much as our customers' requirements and business landscape, right? So they want you to learn. They want you to understand how you can add value, and kind of learn on the job, learn as you go. Salesforce roles are all very open to that. Even if you are media or senior, you should always make time for learning and growing and understanding more about the platform. So that's one I wanted to discuss. The other one is around credentials. So yes, everyone is excited about Trailhead and points and badges and super badges and projects. However, in my experience, I would say that employers don't really care too much about Trailhead. They definitely see it as a good tool for learning, but it's not quite yet translating into, okay, I understand that this person knows what they're doing or has some skill set that I need, right? It's a bit hard to communicate that to employers. So don't focus too much on that. Again, that's just my advice from what I've seen. Also, keep your certifications and your experience in a balance, right? So if you're applying to a job and you have 5 certifications, but you've never actually had any Salesforce experience with a client or with a customer, it doesn't look as good, right? And the other is also true. So if you have a lot of experience and you've never gone for a certification, it also doesn't look good. So my advice here is to take maybe the administrator exam, the associate exam, get started and show that you can take the exams and that you have learned some best practices. But I would say don't overdo it. So don't go for 5 certs before you apply to that first job, and try to get that experience and then do certifications as you go. So as a good measure is 1 year of experience, 1 certification, etc., to really keep that balanced. It also might be that you've done maybe the wrong certifications or ones that are not so interesting to the employer, and they'll prefer that you focus on others that are more in their industry or in their sector, right? So don't rush into the certifications, and make sure that you keep them balanced with the years of experience that you have. Yeah. So the next one I wanted to say is that when you are being hired as a junior, it's not really about Salesforce, right? It's not. They're not expecting you to write a very complicated Apex class or a flow, or expecting you to answer Salesforce solutions on the spot, right? It's not. They're not hiring you for your Salesforce knowledge. They know that you're new. They know that you will learn, that you will pick up the skills, that you will eventually get the certifications that you're aiming for. So don't hesitate too much, or don't overdo it on the technical side. It's really, they're really looking for your communication skills. Are you going to be a good team player? Are you going to work well within the team? What is your attitude? What is your motivation? What is your ambition? These things, in the beginning, I think far outweigh your skill set and the experience that you may or may not have, right? So I think they're really looking for someone they can invest in, someone they can build up, and someone that will be a good fit for their team and for their company. And of course, they also want to know what your thought process is. How are you approaching problems? How are you a logical thinker? Are you confident with business terminology or business acumen? How do you approach data and data analysis? Are you excited about solving customer problems, right? So these are really the things that we see are lacking when people are interviewing, or when people are focusing on that first Salesforce job. They tend to kind of over communicate their technical side, and it's really more about these softer skills. And even some people say that the soft skills are the new hard skills, right? So technical skills are great, but there's so much you can do, and there's so much you can learn and grow with if you have the right attitude and if you have the right motivation, right? So it's not all about Salesforce, I would say, when you're looking for your first job. Another one that we see that has really helped, it's a core part of our program. So we only work with people who are brand new to Salesforce. I would definitely encourage anyone out there looking for their first job is to get a mentor. And Salesforce has a great mentorship program, the Trailblazer Mentorship, that you can apply to. And there's also tons of Salesforce professionals out there who want to mentor. I think what's nice about Salesforce is that no one has learned on their own, in a room by themselves, right? Everyone has had someone help them and kind of lend a hand along the way and answer their questions, whether that's online or offline or on a team environment. Everyone has had help with Salesforce because it's such a big platform, and the more you learn, the less you know. So people are very eager to be a mentor, and we've had this experience with many Salesforce professionals who have excellent experience, who've come to be trainers with us and who've come to be mentors for us. So just reach out, just ask them, find someone that you respect, find someone that you agree with, or is exciting to you, or they're working maybe at a company that you like, or in a location that you like. And just reach out to them. Just say, hey, you're starting as a new person in Salesforce. You're really excited about it, and you want them to help guide you or be a mentor. or coach you a little bit on your interviews, or just take a look at your CV and give you feedback. You'd be surprised at how warm the Salesforce community is in this regard, because everyone has had someone help them along the way to get to where they are. So just get out there and ask. That's a really good one. And the last one, which is probably for me the most important one, because we really believe in building community, and we really think this is kind of the last piece of the puzzle when it comes to finding that job. So say that you have the skills, and say that you have a great CV, and say that you maybe have a mentor, maybe not, but you really need to get out there and meet people, right? And grow your professional network. This is a very welcoming community. Like, people are very nice. There's meetups, there's conferences, there's events. Don't be afraid to go, even if you've never worked in Salesforce, because a lot of people there are also new, right? And they're also trying to figure it out. And they're really very motivated to help, and it will help you find a job for sure. We definitely see this as a way to build your network and to be visible. You can even make contributions. There's nothing too small. I think if something that you want to share, or something that you'd like to bring to the table, talk to the community group leader, or talk to people there to see if you can present something or talk about something. Don't be scared. I think a lot of people have a bit of imposter syndrome when they go into the Salesforce community, but it's not all about how experienced you are or how many certs you have. It's really around community and working together and figuring out new things, right? So definitely would recommend getting involved in the community as a way to help you find that first job. Those are my tips. So now what? I think there's a few things happening in Salesforce outside of what I mentioned that can really be helpful. So Salesforce Talent Alliance has a very active and big LinkedIn group for people who have never had a Salesforce job and who have at least one certification. So feel free to join that group on LinkedIn. There's a lot of employers involved there that are looking for talent, and they're looking for not just people in their local community, but also globally. So there's a lot of employers there looking for new talent. Build your network. So there's, again, lots of meetups, lots of things you can join. Don't be afraid to get involved and get out there, especially now in the spring and the summer. We see so many more events than in the winter, of course, and definitely here in Europe, things are coming back in person. If you're still a little bit hesitant and maybe you're not ready and maybe you're not so confident, definitely find a certified training program, like a Trailblazer workforce development partner or a community partner, just to help you also meet people, but gain a bit more confidence in your skills. And again, if any of this appeals to you in terms of Blue Road Academy, please feel free to check us out and see if our program might be a good fit for you. Because we not only do training, but we also do a lot of job placement and job matching when the training is over. So yes, I think those are all my slides, and thank you very much. And we'll kick it back to Ben or to the Q&A. How do you want to manage this, Ben?
Let's go into the Q&A. Let's do it. Thank you so much, Gaspar. That was really insightful. I think there are a lot of tips in there that you might not usually read about if you do a bit of research, but obviously very important and kind of straight from the horse's mouth, as it were, because you are working directly with the candidates and with the employers as well. So thank you very much. Great. So let's go into the Q&A now. I can see a few questions in the chat, but if you've got any for Gaspar or myself, feel free to put them in, and we can go through as many as we can. The recording, I can see a few people talking about the recording. The recording will be available on our YouTube channel, so head over there. Someone might put a link in the comments, and you can subscribe there and also see the recording over there as well. Just a question from me to kick off, Gaspar, while we wait for some comments to come in. there's been a lot of buzz around the Salesforce Associate certification. There was a free voucher code that was going around that's expired now, unfortunately. But we saw a huge influx of people taking our free associate practice exam because of this free voucher code. And there was a bit of controversy on LinkedIn. You know, a lot of people were in favor of it and some people kind of against it. But I'd be interested to get your take on if it's worthwhile for new Salesforce professionals to take.
Yeah, it's I think it's a really nice one, especially if you're new to Salesforce. It's also so for us, we take it during the class, during the program. We do basically offer it around week 4 as a good kind of gut check to see, are you ready for exams, right? Are you comfortable answering Salesforce questions? So definitely it has a lot of value if you're new. If you have already been in Salesforce for a few years, then yeah, it's kind of useless. But it's really more for new people, and yeah, getting used to the exam, getting used to the questions, getting used to the format is very important as you prepare for the administrator or a more advanced one, because yeah, it's quite tricky sometimes. But yeah, I definitely see a lot of value in it for new people, and I think it's a nice check to see, okay, is this the right thing for me? Is this exciting for me, right? The other thing I like about it as well is it asks you not only a few more kind of platform and admin questions, but it also looks at your experience as a user. So there's a lot of questions around, managing the interface as a user, reports, list views, and things that that aren't super technical.
Yeah, great. And there's a nice bit of motivation as well, I guess, to, once you've passed it, tick it off and then move on to the next one. Great. So yes, a few people are still asking for the other recording, so it's just been put in the links now, so you can follow that and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got a question. Where's it gone? I've lost it. I can't find what it is, but I wrote it down. There was a Salesforce. Here it is. So there was currently working in Salesforce Marketing Cloud, but wants to switch over to a Salesforce developer role. Yeah, do you have any input there, Gaspar? I do have some thoughts of.
Definitely. I mean, Salesforce Marketing Cloud is quite in demand, and I think if you can marry that with also a developer and a more technical skill set, it's definitely even going to be more in demand. There's probably even fewer people who know the developer side of things and the Marketing Cloud side of things. And I'm not an expert in Marketing Cloud, but I know that whatever experience you have as a Salesforce developer will also help you in Salesforce Core, right? So on the Sales and Service Cloud and all of the core products as well.
Yeah, definitely. I know a guy who's a Marketing Cloud architect, and he transitioned from a Salesforce developer role because there's a lot of coding in Marketing Cloud, so there is actually a fair bit of overlap there.
Yeah. Just looking through the comments, I do see some questions around what are the skills, what's the current market in Salesforce. Yeah, I mean, so what we're hearing a lot is the soft skills I mentioned are always important when you're looking for that first job. But in terms of what parts of the platform you should know, we really hear a lot of Service Cloud. Service Cloud is growing quite a lot in Europe. Financial Services Cloud as well, and then Field Service Lightning is something that people are talking more and more about. Omni Studio. It's a big one. And then Marketing Cloud. Yeah, I mean, Marketing Cloud has exploded since COVID. We see a lot of agencies and a lot of consultancies focusing on Marketing Cloud. So from what I understand, it's not a huge jump to focus on the Marketing Cloud email specialist or the Marketing Cloud administrator side after you've learned the core Salesforce. So that will definitely help you. But yeah, again, I got to keep coming back to the soft skills because those are really what's going to set you apart, I think.
So with most of the people in your cohorts, Gaspar, are most of them landing, admin consultant roles, or are some people also landing some of those niche skills like Omni Studio or Marketing Cloud?
So the majority are Salesforce consultant and Salesforce admin, and then business analyst. We see a few as well, and a few developers who already have some coding experience. But we see that that this Omni Studio and these kind of extension ones like Marketing Cloud are a really nice addition after the core program. So we basically tried to get them up and running on those additional things that they don't take that long once you understand a bit of Salesforce. And then that makes them really competitive to the employer. But it's a really specific ask, I would say.
Cool. Interesting question from Zia has just come in. Is it typical for an IT business analyst to act as a Salesforce admin at the same time?
Yeah, good question. It really depends on the employer. If for me, this sounds more like if you're looking at a Salesforce customer, right? You're doing a lot of business analysis. You're working a lot internally with employees, trying to figure out the business cases, the business processes, and you're doing the admin work, right? So I think it's if you're working for a Salesforce customer, those are really two really good skill sets to have.
Yeah, definitely. I remember years ago there was a lot of talk about admins wearing different hats. There'd be the admin, the BA, the trainer, there was like 7 hats I think people would speak about. But I think some people are definitely going to still have to do all those roles at a small company. But I think at a larger one, obviously, it's much better to split those out so people can double down their skill set in a particular area.
Definitely, yeah.
This is quite an interesting question from an anonymous user. How can I find out which companies are using Salesforce in a specific country, in my case, Sweden? So I guess what this user is getting at is, can I find out which companies are using Salesforce and then apply to them or email their hiring manager to land a role? There's definitely, from my point of view, definitely no easy way to do this. I mean, a lot of Googling, going on LinkedIn, typing in Salesforce admin or something, then trying to narrow it down to a country, see which existing people are working at different companies. There are actually some Chrome extensions you can get as well, where if you land on a company's website, it will tell you what technology stacks they're using based on what code's on their website, which is quite interesting. So you could use that as well. But quite an interesting tactic if that's what this question is getting towards. Don't know if you have anything to add.
Finding out the Salesforce customers in this case is always hard. They don't shout about themselves like the Salesforce partners. However, you can find the customers through the partners, right? So go to find the Salesforce consultancies through the App Exchange. You can do that. You can filter by country and then go to their websites, and they will have a lot of success stories or case studies around the customers that they work with. So maybe that'll take a little bit longer, but I think it's a really good way to create a list of potential Salesforce customers. But yeah, there's really no easy way.
Yeah, great. One question from Christopher here about CPQ. So I would say CPQ kind of falls into that category of really in-demand niche Salesforce skills. But from my point of view, I've never been a CPQ expert, but from what I've heard, it's very, very hard to learn unless you are not working on an actual CPQ project. I think, I see you nodding there, Gaspar. I think it would pretty much be impossible to learn the theory and then land the CPQ job because, you need to be working on a real life scenario.
Yeah, it's one of those more advanced applications, I would say, because as a junior, as a starter, no one would expect you to know CPQ. I would say you need to learn Sales Cloud. You need to really understand products, price books, opportunities. Really, that's a lot of organizations will use CPQ on top of Sales Cloud, right? So if you can kind of know that really well, then you can probably leverage that into learning CPQ a bit better. It is pretty niche, but we do definitely see that as a demand. But the expectation that someone would know CPQ as their first Salesforce job, that's just not possible, I think. And I think there's also a challenge around licenses. So it's not something that you can get an org with CPQ for free, right? Just to learn and play around. So yeah, it's definitely in demand, but it's not a realistic expectation, I think, for a starter.
Yeah. Really interesting one here from Mark. As a newcomer aspiring to work as a consultant, it seems a user admin experience seems to be more valuable in potential employers' eyes over years of consultancy, but on a different technology. You might have some experience with this, Gaspar, with your cohorts.
Yes, that's a good one. So definitely direct experience is more valuable, I would say. You can find ways to transition previous experience into Salesforce. But if you have, everybody wants that direct experience, right? Have you worked with Salesforce? Have you worked with customers? That's very, very important. And especially in Europe that we see it's a specialization, right? It's a specialized economy. And I think, they want to know what your Salesforce experience is. However, you also can figure out different ways to communicate your value and your past experience, especially if you're kind of a career changer as well, because those soft skills will also matter.
Great. There's one here from John Roy talking about admin free practice exam. So if you head over, maybe someone can put a link in the chat, but we've got a free practice exam on salesforceben.com that you can practice your practice before you take your admin exam. And 41 out of 60, very, very respectable score. I think the pass is, what's the pass, Gaspar? 70 something?
I think the pass is 41 questions correct out of 60.
Oh, is it? Is it? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it's I think it's either close to passing or passing. Then I think you're ready to take the real exam, I would say. And nobody cares about your percentage. Nobody will ask you, nobody really cares. If you get a 99%, fantastic, but it's not that important, I would say. So it's kind of like running a marathon as well. If you never run the full marathon before the marathon, right? You just run, 70% of it, and then the rest will just be adrenaline.
Great. I think we've answered most of the questions. I'll give it a minute or so.
There's also one around the sales representative certification. So that one is like brand new, I think. And I don't know, Ben, if you know anything about it, but I haven't actually looked at it.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one actually. Salesforce have recently released the Sales Blazer community, not Trailblazer, Sales Blazer. I don't know what their motivations are, but they're trying to build up a community of salespeople and I guess teach them how to use Salesforce better. Part of what this new Salesforce certification is about is making sure that salespeople are using Salesforce in the best practice way to manage their pipeline, following up with people. I don't actually know too much about the cert itself, but I mean, I think your time would probably be best spent elsewhere, because it's not going to be about the technical aspects of Salesforce, but maybe in the future it could be quite good to learn about those sales best practices.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, the Sales Blazer community has been all over my feed. Still trying to wrap my head around it.
And they've got a new character now, Zig the Zebra. I'm sure we'll see plushies for those coming up very soon. There's one here from Alexandru, which is quite long, so I won't bring it up. But in summary, he's saying he's done everything that you can to land a job in the ecosystem, applied with using many of the tips from here, but nobody considers entry-level individuals like me for the role. So where does he go from here? What would you say, Gaspar?
Yeah, don't be discouraged. It is hard, especially because Salesforce ecosystem considers 1 to 2 years of experience as a junior or as a starter, which is sometimes crazy because it's like, okay, how are you supposed to get those first 1 to 2 years of experience? But I would say maybe it's time to leave the screen a little bit and stop applying to so many jobs and start talking to people and getting more in the community and finding a mentor. So finding different strategies to help you break into that if applying to jobs directly is not getting you the results you want.
I think one thing that I would point out there that I'm seeing quite a lot of new entrants to the ecosystem doing is building out a portfolio. So, spinning up a dev org, creating solutions for a fake business, and then documenting those on a public website, or maybe it's a presentation or something like that. I was reading a comment from a hiring manager on Reddit the other day who was saying that this particular point is what makes candidates really stand out. Because it might not be a real business, but as long as it's got kind of real requirements and you're building a real solution, I think that's what matters. So yeah, it could be something to look into there.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think showing is always better than telling, right?
Yeah, exactly. Any more that you see there, Gaspar?
Just going through.
We're nearly at the time we scheduled for this, so maybe we can take one more, or if anyone's got any last ones, feel free to drop them in.
Not seeing too many questions, just lots of nice comments.
I've got one here from Zia again. Thanks for all your questions, Zia. How far in advance should you schedule to take the Salesforce admin exam? I mean,
depends. Yeah.
When I used to take certs, I just used to make sure I booked it in and gave myself a realistic amount of time to revise, because I think it really motivates you if you do have that date booked in. But there's no point in booking it for 2 weeks in advance and start revising from scratch, because it's not going to go down well. It's going to be very stressful. So I don't know, maybe like a month or something like that. But I think obviously you need to be revising before that in order to book your exam.
For sure, yeah, and not everyone, some people have test anxiety, right? So I would definitely recommend doing as many practice exams as you can. There's some on Salesforce Ben, but there's also a certified practice admin exam on Web Assessor. So where you register for the real exam, you can purchase a certified practice exam just to really get you comfortable with the format, with the selection, right? Trying to kind of, de-risk the exam a little bit so you don't get too nervous, because not everyone is good at taking exams. I know it can cause a lot of anxiety. So definitely do as many practice tests as you can before you get ready.
Great. Thank you, Gaspar. So we'll wrap up there. Thank you very much for everyone for attending. Hopefully you found this session really insightful. I know I have. And Gaspar, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been much appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
Great.
Good luck, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.